As the saying goes, defense wins championships. And many times, it also wins court cases. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Hello, sports historians. Welcome to audio, video, podcast, episode number 34 of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. This is part 3 of our series with Loyola University of Los Angeles graduate and the lead attorney for the defense of Loyola Marymount University in the Hank Gathers case, Wayne Boehle. If you missed either of the first 2 parts, they're available on our YouTube channel or wherever you listen. All links are available at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Let's say hi to the producer of the top video podcast in the Sentinel Adobe corridor, my official quarantine partner for life, the director of the SSDL slate of Live at 5 shows, the setter for the 1990 CIF Southern Section Championship Notre Dame Academy volleyball team, Christine Jimbo.
You went deep in the vault for that one. Okay, I'm here to remind you of those 3 things. Be sure to check Twitter, Instagram, YouTube for our giveaways and promos, and you can find us using these 3 things. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. That's Denny like the restaurant, Lennon like the Beatle. At Sports Stories DL, and info at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Those are 3 ways you can find us and rate, review, repost, all the things that you like on each of our channels.
Absolutely. Follow me on Twitter at SportsStoriesDL. If you don't have a Twitter account, it's easy. You're going to want to get one because there's going to be some fun stuff coming up there. So from our first couple episodes, we've learned that Wayne was an outstanding athlete growing up. He may have faced some trouble now and again, but he seemed to have the mentors and friends in place to help him along this journey. In this final installment, we discuss Wayne's role as the lead attorney for LMU in the Hank Gathers case. The story of the 1990 LMU basketball team captured the nation's heart. Hank Gathers, along with his best friend from Philadelphia, Bo Kimball, had transferred from USC to join head coach and fellow Philadelphia native Paul Westhead, the same coach who led the LA Lakers to an NBA title just 10 years earlier. Now, that 1990 LMU Lions team led the nation in scoring with a revolutionary up-tempo style of play. Then they tragically lost their leader when Hank Gathers died on their home court before the NCAA Tournament. The team banded together to miraculously advance to the NCAA Regional Finals, knocking off the defending champs along the way. Wayne Boehle, an all-conference guard from the school's basketball team in the 1960s, had built a distinguished career in law over the next 30 years, and then would be called on again to defend for the Lions when the Gathers family sued the school. Now it's time to conclude the 3-part interview from the 7428 studio in Westchester, California. It's part 3 with Wayne Boehle. Please note this interview was recorded on March 2nd, 2020. Now I wanted to move a little bit into some of the items on the Hank Gathers case, because we were there the other day and watched the statue get put up. It was really a magical time at Loyola. That season, those seasons.
Those 2
Actually,
years.
Westhead was there for like 5 years, and he had a good team most every year. Coach Paul Westhead.
Yeah, they were representative, but obviously not as good as they were when he had his system and he had the right players to run it.
He had the right players, yeah. And his system was something else.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very
would you have liked to play in that kind of system?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I was a real good defensive player,
Mm-hmm.
and I was smart. One of the reasons I played, I could shoot, and I was a good defensive player. Wasn't a good ball handler, but I could shoot, and this was zero defense.
Right. They were encouraging you to score quickly
right.
so that you would tire out.
That's right.
And they did all their training right in on the dunes of Manhattan Beach.
That's
there, right where they could have got caught for holding beer down in that area if they were
As
careful.
As they don't put it in the purse of their girlfriend.
Exactly. So so they're in tremendous shape, and that's really exciting. And Gersten Pavilion is selling some tickets, and they're putting up big numbers. So I mean, there's a lot going on there. And when Hank had those problems, it wasn't too public that you definitely knew that, you didn't know that he had that. I guess it was in the news, but I know when he died, it obviously the rest of the country went, wow. And then for, Bo to shoot those free throws left-handed, and for the team to, go on and still have victory throughout. I mean, that was a really, emotional time. So I could imagine once the family went to look for damages against the school, that was a downer.
Yeah, it was. It was not unexpected, but certainly because of the love the school had for Hank and vice versa. Don't forget he had spent 1 or 2 years at USC. Both he and Kimball both, and for whatever reason they were not. Either they didn't fit into that program, or they didn't like.
I think they changed
where the
coaches
program was
maybe
going.
or something.
They did change coaches. They had their friend from Philadelphia, who at one time was an assistant coach at Loyola. I can't remember his name. He actually brought him out here.
It was all Philadelphia connection. Westhead's a Philadelphia guy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And
So that's what made the landing spot at LMU work for those two.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. It was a good fit. And then the other players that Paul had recruited. I mean, Jeff Fryer made a living off of shooting threes.
Wide open threes.
And the other guard who came in, who's Terrell Lowry. Terrell Lowry was on that team. And one of my teammates' sons was on that team, but he was a redshirt. He did not play that year. Brian McCloskey, who ended up playing the next year, he was on that team also. So it was fun to go to. I had season tickets. I was not there in December when he had the syncopal episode. I had given those tickets, ironically, to my high school teammate that I was talking about earlier, Tom McPherson. His son, both of his sons went to LMU to play tennis. And so I'd given my season seats to him for that game. And his youngest son has a little heart anomaly. And Hank goes down on the floor in December. Oh, wait a minute. I'm wrong. He was there the night he died.
Whoa.
The December tickets I'd given to somebody else.
Somebody else.
He was there in March.
But Hank had that episode in December, I think at Gersten, right?
That's correct.
In Gersten Pavilion is his name. And then, but this, when Hank died, was in the conference championship game, I think?
No.
Semifinals or something?
It was in the quarter or semifinals against, I believe, Portland.
Yeah, Eric Spolstra was on Portland's team.
I think
Isn't that wild?
Against Portland.
Yeah.
And what 90% of the public doesn't know is when Hank went down in December, they took him out of the game, sat him down, took him back to the locker room, and couldn't figure they realized his heart rate was up, but didn't realize what was the cause. They put him through a battery of tests to the point where they advised the school that he cannot play anymore because they could not determine what the defect was. And when I say that, I say it because his heart rate was incapable. They were incapable of getting it up high enough on stress treadmills, on running around a track, to see where the defect in his heart was. They couldn't.
I see.
He was in such phenomenal condition.
He would like condition before games and stuff.
He was
in phenomenal condition.
Incredible condition.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it, so he wasn't going to get to play. And that was the initial decision of the medical.
I see.
The medical staff. Okay,
so this leads up to what may or may not have been all kinds of things. He may or may not have taken the medication, so on and so forth. But once he does die, I think the family has 4 major charges. And they had, was it Bruce Fagel?
He was their attorney.
I looked at his Facebook site. He looked like an interesting guy.
Interesting guy. He's a doctor and a lawyer.
Wow.
He's a doctor and a lawyer.
Right.
Okay. So the gatherers sue claimed that, one, that Westhead induced Hank's doctors to reduce Hank's dosage of Enderol. 2, the doctors did not properly monitor the effects of gatherers on the lower dosage. 3, that the Loyola Marymount team doctor, school doctor, team trainer waited too long to administer life-saving procedures after he collapsed. And 4, that perhaps gatherers should not be playing basketball at all. So those are, is that about right?
Those are the allegations in the complaint, and those are the ones that we had to. Some of those obviously were. I was representing the school, the coach, the athletic director, who was my teammate, and the trainer, and Chip Schaefer. I had all.
Was Chip Schaefer the one who played at Pally?
No.
Different one. Okay.
No, different Schaefer.
Okay.
But he was the Boston Celtic trainer.
Oh wow.
Chip Schaefer.
Okay.
And also Laker trainer.
Wow.
Chip Schaefer.
And then Brian Quinn, athletic director at the school, but he was a teammate of yours from back in the day?
I was a sophomore, he was a senior.
Okay.
And I taught him how to play volleyball. He turned out to be a good volleyball player. And
what were the particulars when they were filed a $32.5 million lawsuit or something?
That's correct.
Okay.
$32.5 million. And what surfaces after the unfortunate death of Hank Gathers is a child that nobody knew anything about. And his name was Aaron Crump, I believe.
Crump. That's right.
And he was 6 years old. And Hank was 23.
Yeah.
So he had this kid at 17.
Right.
Nobody knew about him. So now he surfaces as an heir, and he gets in the lawsuit with another Philadelphia lawyer. Now Westhead's friend, one of his best friends, college classmate, was a guy named Richie Phillips.
Okay.
Richie Phillips was the Major League Baseball umpire's lawyer.
Oh, yeah. He was always in all those big arbitrations. And
I'd get calls from Richie Phillips at 4 a.m, our time.
Right, because he's
at 7 o'clock in Philadelphia. And he'd yell and scream about, you got to get Westhead out of this case, you got to do this, you got to do that. And he'd start swearing on the phone. I'd hang up on him. I'd say, Richie, I'm not going to talk to you if you're going to talk like this. And it got down to where one day we had a 3-way call. And I will never forget this. I said, Richie explained what he thought should be done. I explained to Paul what I thought should be done and how. And Paul had to make a decision, and he chose to go my way.
Okay.
And Richie has passed on, but he actually got fired from if I remember correctly, from the Major League Baseball.
Part of the steroid stuff?
I don't know what it was about, but I remember he was their lawyer for a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Yep. And so the case had a whole lot of tangents. The medication was one thing. The issue of Paul Westhead telling them, calling the doctor to change medication. I can tell you what happened there if you want to hear that. What happened was he was put on a program. Hank was, and the contract, because he had to sign a contract that he would abide by this, was he would wear a heart monitor during the week of practice.
Okay.
And then on Fridays, he would go in for some sort of a test.
Contract was with the doctor?
With Daniel Freeman
Okay.
and Michael Millman and one other physician whose name I can't recall. That he agreed to do this, and the school agreed to do it. That they would get him to the doctor's office. So this is going on. This happens in December. So roughly...
First incident in December, so it's like January, February.
Roughly, no, not even that late. Roughly in December, after they had figured out what they could do to get him to play, he signs his contract. And everything is going along okay. And what the deal was, they put him on a dosage of medication that made him like a 13-year-old kid, lethargic. Couldn't move, he wasn't fast, but it was the effects of the medication.
Indrol.
So, I don't even remember whether it was Indrol or not.
Okay.
But at the end of the week, what they were doing was they had a test, which I know nothing about, but they had a test that would allow them to reduce the medication. So the objective was to observe these test results and get to a point where, because once they knew where the defect was, which they finally figured out through a test that off the record I'll tell you about. Once they figured out what his problem was, they needed to get to a point where it was a non-lethal issue with the right dosage of medication.
Got it.
So they kept reducing it. They had a trip. It was a very important trip for Hank Gathers. They went back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They played St. Joseph's and Villanova. Two schools, his hometown. Everybody was there to see him, and he was awful. He was awful.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
He was awful. He came in the locker room after the game, after one of the games, and he grabbed lockers, was throwing lockers on the ground, was screaming and yelling, and this is a part of a public record, and he yelled out, "I ain't taking no more fucking medication," in front of Westhead. So, that night, Westhead calls the doctor. And as you know, doctors' notes, they have notes, and these notes came during the pendency of the litigation or became an issue, and they were discussing what the doctor, Melman, I think it was Melman, had written as to what Westhead said. Westhead called him and said, "Doc, I can't play him. He's like a 13-year-old kid with the medication he's on. Can we change the medication?" Now, and I may not be quoting his exact words, but what he meant by that is there something different that we can give him that's going to make him a better player. And the doctor's response was, if we were to do that, he'd have to start all over again at a higher dosage. So no, we're leaving it right where it is. And of course they pick up on that, where the coach was demanding that they change the medication. Or take him off the medication, which was not true.
He's not a doctor.
Which was not true. So, I guess only God knows what really happened that day. But the experts were of the opinion that had the medication continued to be taken, this would not have happened.
I see. So he. More than likely.
Oh, yeah, but I really didn't get into the juicy part of the story, which is what cost one of the doctors $1 million, and that was this. His treating doctor was a guy that I know. He's actually a good golfer. His name was Hattori. He was the heart guy. And
did he beat Jerry West in golf?
No.
Okay.
No. Oh, now he might be able to. So, Friday comes, and Hank doesn't show up for the test at the hospital.
The Friday before the conference tournament? Or
no, they played Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
So he doesn't show up for the test on Friday, which is part of the contract. The hospital or the doctor calls and says he can't play. Westhead gets the phone call and calls Hank in the office Saturday morning. Calls him in and says, "Hank, what the hell is going on?" you can't play tonight. He said, what do you mean I can't play tonight? He said, you didn't go in for the test yesterday. You've been doing it all these weeks, and now all of a sudden, he said, I was so busy, Coach, I had things going on. And he said, Hank, you can't. He says, I'll take the test right now. Call him. I'll go shoot over there, and I'll take it right now. Calls the hospital. The hospital says, all of our technicians that run this test, whatever it was, are gone. And if you want to do it, we have to bring in another whole unit, and it's going to cost the school about $30,000. And there's no way the school is going to pay for that.
Right.
So Westhead said, is there any way that we can, he says, let's get a hold of his heart surgeon. So they get a hold of the doctor, the heart surgeon, and he is leaving for Palm Springs for a bachelor party and a wedding.
Who's leaving for that?
The doctor.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And
well, Hank got out there too.
Hank begs him, you got to clear me to play. You got to clear me to play. And he says, let me look at your previous week's tests.
Oh boy.
So he looks at the previous week's tests.
Let's see.
And he says, and this is what cost him $1 million. He said, this is on the record, I'm going to be out of town. I'll have my assistant, it's the guy that you need to call if you need to call him, because I'm out of town this weekend. I'm leaving. He said, but if you feel your heart start to race during the game, take yourself out of the game.
Oh, right. Like that.
Now, believe it or not, because I lived with this for years, it was sound medical advice. It was okay. Based on the testing and based on him taking the medication, it was okay to say that. But as a result of that, he ended up paying $1 million.
And what about to the point that the care given at Gersten was substandard? Or
Yeah, it was. There was a few sides on that, issues on that as to what do we do, how do we do it, when do we do it. This was all discussed after the first Syncable episode back in December. Mm-hmm. And it was decided, and probably rightfully so, and if I'm not mistaken, the medical evidence was it would the time that it took to get from the gym to the training room to administer the defibrillator.
Is that where the defib was in the training room?
Yes. The time to get there would not have made a difference. That's my recollection of what the testament. Now, of course, the plaintiff was going to argue differently. But the decision, and people don't think about this, the decision, if I'm not mistaken, the night he passed away, there were at least 2 other minor issues with people having fainting spells or from observing him on the floor.
Oh, I see.
Okay?
Okay.
So their thought process was, if we paddle this guy in the middle of the basketball court, and you see, and it's you see about the body jumps, you're going to have, of the 3,500 people that were there,
that's going to escalate.
You're going to have other issues. So
everybody was trained and stuff, because I know even at that eventually, I don't know whether it was that case, but that certainly brought notoriety. But even when I was an athletic director in high school, we had to go through that same training, know how to use what was in effect a carryable defib machine.
Defibrillator. Yeah. No, and Chip Schaefer was trained in the use of that medical piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I found that interesting that the family was like, we were traumatized by the way they carried him off the floor. And I thought, how else, are you going to carry him off the floor? You're not going to bring a tent out and a golf cart. Yeah,
it was a sad thing. The family, I think, eventually reconciled with the school, with Westhead.
Yeah.
They look during the litigation phase. They have to do what is in their best interest. But we had videotapes of his mother holding up signs during the course of the game. Go Hank, you're the best. And her testimony was she told Westhead she didn't want him to play. Please don't play my son.
Yeah, that's.
I don't want to, and that's part of the.
It's part of it.
The legalistics of how and And I get it. I understand it. You know, it's a thought. One thing I've learned in 48 years of practicing law before I became a mediator, the thing I've learned is the mind is an amazing thing. Two people can look at an accident site, non-party witnesses, and see the same thing, but yet testify completely differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's
and the more the
amazing.
story's told, the more that may come to light and then be remembered as real.
Correct.
And so it expands, and then sometimes you don't have the real facts.
But where I was going with that point was, the more you convince yourself that's what you saw, the more inflexible you become, even when it becomes obvious that you didn't see it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
You stand by your principles. You stand by what you saw, what you observed, and it's amazing.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you a commercial from our sponsor, Casablanca.
Casablanca Restaurant in Venice, California, proud sponsor of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon, also sponsoring the Facebook Live at 5 Friday show.
Margaritas.
That's right. Carlos is kind enough at Casablanca to package up like a to-go, what they're selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
To-go. What is in it? It's like that taco
His
bar?
daily deal. He does basically a taco bar with 2 different meats, beans, rice, tortillas. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. And then you throw in the margaritas with that. And if you watch our Friday show, you'll see that we cheers one another. He sends one over to Venice, where Marley and the Rices are hosting part of the show, over here to the 7428 studio.
And
where
any
we do
local
it.
guests.
And any local guest. Doug O'Neill.
Benefit as well.
Doug O'Neill, the Triple Crown winner, horse trainer, is a new big fan. So, thank you, Carlos. You can call Carlos at 310-505-5091. Again, 310-505-5091. Call Carlos. Ask him for the Sports Stories with Denny Lennon special. He's going to throw in margaritas or a big percentage off.
Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca. La comida para la familia. Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca.
And now back to our interview.
School was 32.5 was what the family was looking for, and I think the school's insurance company picked up $545,000.
It wasn't very much.
Is that about right?
I can, if you want to hear the story,
Sure.
the backstory on that. They fly me up to San Francisco, and I'm meeting with all the prefects, all the insurance people, all the excess insurance people. There's probably 15 people in the room, and I spent 45 minutes trying to convince them to let me vindicate the school.
Yeah, you said, but on a personal level, I would have liked my clients vindicated by a jury.
Right.
Because I believe they would have been.
I wanted to vindicate the school, the coach, the athletic director, and the trainer, and I thought I could do that. They asked me what it would cost to vindicate the school, and I gave them a number. I forget what the number was. I probably said something like $1.6 million. And they said, "What can you resolve this case for?" And I said, "I would hope I could resolve it somewhere between $400,000 and $700,000, which is about half of what it's going to cost them to be vindicated."
Yeah.
They met for about 40 minutes. I sat down, and then they called me back in, and they said, "We are in the process of trying to raise $80 to $100 million for buildings that are now built in the last 30 years. We don't want the adverse publicity. Your job is to get the case settled." So I did.
Okay. All right. Well, it took 30 years, but there seemed to be a lot of love all around the statue being unveiled. Mom had a very emotional moment in front of the statue, but then the family, took the picture, and it certainly is a beautiful statue. Same artist or sculptor that did the Elgin Baylor one at Staples.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
it's a picture of him holding a ball in one hand, isn't it? I mean, a statue.
Yeah. So it's really it's beautiful, and then the team was recognized during halftime the team that was playing wore the throwback uniforms, which was kind of fun to see those unis out on the court.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That was kind of fun to see that. And then
They lost. They lost to USF.
They lost by 2
points.
Yeah.
Good game.
And Gersten, I found, I don't remember it being, I forgot that one side is like basically the red, and then the other side is blue. So everything up on the wall on this side, even the banners are all blue, and everything up on the wall and everything over here is red. It's got a nice aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
And they're in the process of raising money to. I don't believe they're going to be building a new gym. I don't know if we have the space, but I think they're going to expand this one somehow, some way.
Gersten the second, I guess it was Gersten the first, who the gym was named after, and Gersten the second.
Gersten, right.
Was he like friendly with Hank or something? Because I saw him in the paper a lot.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Friendly with most of the kids on the team.
Did that create problems for the athletic department?
It did and it didn't, because it really never came to light as to whether he violated any of the ethical rules of giving gifts where they weren't supposed to be given. So that never really materialized.
Okay.
His depot was taken.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are so many depots taken in that case.
It's nothing new in collegiate athletics
For a booster?
For boosters to be involved. It just was, I found it interesting when I kept seeing the name Gersten pop up, because I thought maybe not so much the guy who put up the money for the gym.
Yeah, no, it's and he did put the money up for the gym, a large portion of it. That's why the gym is named after him.
Yeah. Okay. Last one thing, and then you got to answer a series of questions, Wayne,
No
because
problem.
you're going to be on the stand pretty soon here.
Good.
Okay. But can you tell me a little bit about, you've been a longtime member of the LA Athletic Club. I found it very exciting that the U.S. Open's coming that way.
No, I've never been a member of the LA Athletic Club.
Never?
Los Angeles Country Club.
I'm sorry.
Different
So
facility.
you
Owned
know why
by-
I wrote my notes to me, LA Athletic Club, because of how much I go there, because it's an AAU thing.
That's right. And
So the Los Angeles Country Club.
By the way, I think the Hathaways are the ones who own the LA Athletic Club. They also owned at one time Riviera Country Club, the golf course.
That was their country.
And then they sold that. The Japanese, I think, have bought the Riviera Country Club. So yeah, the Los Angeles Country Club is where I play golf.
LA Country Club,
Right.
and I've gone out there a couple times with you. Had awesome time, but I found it really interesting because I remember they're always very private, if you will. But now that they're going to host the U.S. Open, do you know how that came to be?
I sure do. When I joined there in 1980, every single year, the PGA would come and ask to get it, and it would be voted down. I am now the old guard. I was the young guard back in 1980, and as an old guard, they didn't want it. Didn't want the publicity. Didn't want people to know anything about the course. And of course, times have changed, and attitudes have changed. And the young guard, who's now the old guard, loves the idea of people seeing our course and seeing. We had the Walker Cup there.
Right,
which was held
right.
just a couple of years ago, and as a kind of like a test to see how it went down. Now that's not as widely known, obviously, as the U.S. Open, but then the board voted to approve this. Now, just as a side note, if we had to vote again, I think I would vote against it.
Is it going to take your Tuesday golf date away?
It's going to tie up our golf course for much longer than anybody even dreams that it's going to do. But the curiosity, the intrigue, for me is to see what they score on the course that's U.S. Open.
That to me is fascinating.
That's
going to be great, and also it's almost like getting to see behind the curtain for the rest of the country, because you hear about the Los Angeles Country Club, but not everybody has got a chance to really see what it looks like.
It's ranked number. I mean, for a course that's over 100 years old, it's ranked like number 16 in the country.
Yeah.
And there's no water on it. There's water hazards, but there's no water unless it rains.
That's
it's an interesting. It is
an interesting course.
A design course, and you can play. It's going to play 7,500 yards, and I believe that if they cut the fairways in, which they're going to do, and they speed up the greens, which they're going to do, that the scoring is not going to be as easy as people think it's going to be, because this is
That's in the
course.
tradition of the U.S. Open too.
Yeah.
That's going to be
So
great.
I'm predicting 4 to 5 under wins the tournament.
Okay.
So
Nice.
you
All
got
right.
that.
Yeah, I'm going to tag that one. So we talked about your boy Mike
Right.
being a very successful volleyball coach at Loyola High School, having won, I forget, the 6 section titles, I think. Four
Four or
states.
5 states.
Yeah. Now your boy Danny has had his share of success at the LA Country Club.
Yeah,
Right?
he turned out to be a very good golfer, and
Could he beat Jerry West? Or?
he could probably beat Jerry West today.
Oh, okay. Now the
He could beat him
revenge has a
He
sweet
could beat him
taste.
today.
Okay.
You know, Jerry is an interesting guy. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time in his life, he was a +3, which is a real good golfer.
Really good.
He actually quit playing for 6 years, never touched a club, because he could not deal with shots that weren't going where he wanted them to go. And it's fascinating, because now he plays the game for fun, and he's much, much better at it. He gave me a copy of his book, West by West.
Oh, it's unbelievable book.
I couldn't read it. I started.
It's rough.
I couldn't read it. I didn't want to know about the demons.
When he was young, geez.
Yeah. So I didn't read the book. I read 20 pages of it and said, I don't need to read this. But I see him probably 2 or 3 times a week.
He when I told you about that time he came to Archer, and he was so forthright. The plan was I was going to interview him and ask him some questions, so I read the book and so forth. But he goes, I wrote some notes, and so I wasn't involved much at all. But I sat there fascinated, because he spoke so much from the heart about what it was growing up like he did, dealing with depression, all the parts of his life. He was so forthright and transparent. It was fascinating to watch these young people who were really in the area to watch him, because their dads and their grandfathers went, Jerry West is coming. Oh, right?
Yeah.
But anyways.
But he's such a wonderful, if you're a friend of his, he'll give you the shirt off his back if in time of need. And, if I ever needed him to sign anything and just bring it in, no problem. If he's a friend of yours, he's a friend for life. And I will tell you one Jerry West story, which is a funny story. We're playing golf at LA on the South Course, and we're playing two people from Bel Air, and we're playing for a substantial sum of money. That Sunday, the day before, we played on a Monday. This day before, the one and only time in the history of golf, a PGA Tour player won a tournament putting one-handed.
Okay. I don't remember this.
His name is Mike Holbert. You can look that up.
Okay.
The only golfer ever to win a PGA tournament putting one-handed. Now, Jerry and I were playing these two golfers from Bel Air on the South Course at LA, and I got a number of shots. One of the other persons got another shots, and then Jerry and this other person were close. Anyway, we get on the first hole, and Jerry knocks it on the green. He's 15 feet from the pin. He misses the putt. He gets in the cart, and we're driving to the second tee, and he goes, I can't make a putt. God damn it. I can't make a putt. I'm going to putt one-handed. This is on the first hole.
This is after one hole.
After one hole. And I said, Jerry, you're fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine. So from then until the 18th tee, he threatened to putt one-handed 8 times after missing birdie putts. And we get to the 18th hole, and the match is dead even, and the winner is going to win like $400 or $500.
Okay.
So we're dead even. I get a shot on that hole, and one of the other persons gets a shot. I get up and I hook it out of bounds onto Wilshire Boulevard.
Okay.
So I'm done.
You're done.
So it's Jerry against the two of them. He hits a great drive. He knocks his. Well, the other guy hits the ball much shorter than Jerry. Lays up short of the green. He gets a stroke. The other person knocked it in the trap, left it in the trap, picked up. So now it's the stroker against Jerry. The stroker's on the green. 30 feet from the pin, lying 3.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry's on the green 5 feet from the pin, lying 2. So if they both 2-putt, we end up tying. He putts one-handed on the last hole.
Got a feeling he knocked it in, didn't he?
4-putted. So we lose. I take him out to the parking lot. He opens his trunk. He takes his clubs off. He puts his clubs in his trunk. And I go, hey, Jer. And he goes, yeah. And I said, Mr. Clutch my ass. And he said, screw you, and got in the car and drove off. And that's a dead true story.
Love it. I got him the day he showed up. That day was the Golden State Warriors, who he was consulting for, had won the 73rd game to break the regular season record. They broke the Bulls record for most wins.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also the morning after, and so he came back from San Francisco, and it was the morning after Kobe's last game had dropped 60. And so he came.
By the way, I was at Kobe's game when he got 81.
Oh, 81? You read that game?
I was
there. Man, now that one, they had to come from behind and everything.
I was there. That team was awful. Toronto, I think it was.
Toronto. And Jerry West goes, 50. He got 50 shots? He goes, you give me 50 shots, I drop 90 easy.
Well,
crack me up.
People don't, because he's a real good friend of mine, and I think he's one of the best ever to play the game. Two things I would say about his playing level as opposed to his managerial level, but because he has skills there too.
Mm-hmm.
No one evaluates talent better
sure
than
does.
this man. But if you look at films of him playing, he could bounce the ball with one hand, right hand, and move it to his left and back again and go up faster than any human being I've ever seen and get open. He played, his second year in the NBA, he averaged 27 points a game, no three-point shot.
No three-point shot.
No three-point shot. He would have been close to one of the top
scorers
scorers if they had a three-point line. It was unbelievable.
What was it, 59, I guess, or something? West Virginia lost. He lost with them in the finals of the NCAA, and he's just like, not a day I don't think about it. But he got MVP there, and then he also got MVP of a series.
Yeah.
Only losing player.
Correct.
To ever get NBA
MVP.
and I think in college too, which shows how much people thought of him.
Well, here's a trivia question for you. In the history of basketball, everybody knows that the only player ever to score 100 points in an NBA game was Wilt Chamberlain. Mm-hmm. There has been one player to score 100 points in a college basketball game.
Oh, was it that Rick Mount or something like that?
No.
The guy in Indiana?
No. And he was a teammate of Jerry West on the Lakers.
Imhoff?
No.
Who?
Furman Frank Sylvie. He went to Furman University. Scored 100 points in a college basketball game. And
nobody knows about that.
No one. That's one of my best trivia questions.
It is a good one. Nobody knows that because normally I can get those. Huh. All right, here we go, Wayne.
Yeah.
You're in the chair.
I'm in the chair.
Here it comes.
All right. Do I have to tell the truth?
Yep, you do.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. So
whatever.
Whatever. Okay.
Don't let a myth get in the way of a good story.
All right.
Best opposing player you ever competed against.
Do I have to guard him, or is this on the court?
Yeah, you're on the court with him.
Okay. I would say one of two. Either one of three. Either Erwin Muller for USF, Ollie Johnson at USF, or John Rudametkin at USC.
Best teammate you ever had?
Best teammate I ever had would have been, I've had a number. I'm going to say two, one of two. I'm going to say Ken Peterson or Brian Quinn or Detroit Flanagan, one of those three. Top three.
I like the guys named after a city. Most memorable comeback you remember playing?
Most memorable comeback in high school was against El Segundo at our gym, and we were down by like 12 points. Came back, and with 18 seconds to go in the game, they threw the ball to me in the corner, and I went up to shoot it. We were up by 1, and the coach was yelling, "No, no!"
Strap.
And I shot it, and it went in, and he said, "Atta baby." Nice. My most memorable comeback.
Nice. On that note, I'll say it because your boy was coaching, but Vaughn, Stephen Irvin team that they were on at Loyola High School, I think we're down in set 5.
I was there.
At Newport Harbor, 14-9 or 14-10?
No, it's actually 14-11.
14-11.
14-11. But,
Yeah.
I remember every play the way it goes. Your son blocked the ball.
That was wild.
Zoppy blocked the but Irvin's going back to serve.
He jump serves like a machine.
And he was 50% during the year.
Yeah.
So I said, it's over.
That was some kind of comeback.
That was a great comeback.
What would have been your most memorable win?
In basketball?
Sure.
Volleyball?
Any sport.
Oh.
What sticks out in your mind?
Gosh.
I mean, VBC,
Well,
obviously, we know that, but outside
my
of that
most
one.
memorable win, Richard Segrist and myself beat Tom Shamawis and Jim Mingus in a beach tournament.
Okay.
That's a memorable win. But
that's memorable.
But it doesn't compare to some of the bigger basketball games that we won. But that's
all right. That sticks out.
Yeah.
First pet.
First pet was a dog named Fella.
First car.
First car was a 1930, 36, 37 Chevy that we called the Mustache because we took out, one of my friends in an auto shop took out whatever the front things were and then painted it, covered it over and looked like it had a mustache.
All right. Favorite sports team as a kid?
The Brooklyn Dodgers.
Nickname as a kid?
Butch.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Favorite board game?
Now or?
Sure.
Now. My favorite board game now would be, what's the name of the game? Tina and we play it all the time. I think it's called Secret Agent.
Okay. Oh.
No, it's Code Names. It's called Code Names.
I remember that they had that at the
Code
Spy
Names.
Museum.
Code Names.
Favorite main dish?
Oh, hamburger meat over mashed potatoes and gravy.
Solid. Your kids used to die for my mom's meatloaf pie. They would come over. They would say, "Hey, should we go play football at your house?"
No, I've got to have gravy. I can't have it dry.
So good.
I love a good shepherd's pie, but hamburger meat over mashed potatoes.
Favorite dessert?
Which I get for my birthday every year. Chocolate cream pie.
Okay.
Homemade.
I know you're a movie buff. Favorite movie?
Of all time?
Sure.
The Godfather.
Mm-hmm. Favorite musical group?
Venice.
All right. They finally got on the board. That's good. Favorite author?
My favorite author would be, oh gosh, not Nicholas. Ian Fleming.
Favorite professional athlete? All time?
Jerry West.
Nice. I think we already know where you met your wife. Frat party.
At a frat party. No, frat open house.
Frat open house. And this is funny because I asked these everybody. And how about your first date? Was first date was when she was.
Our first date was
beers?
The first date was the day we went to jail.
Wow, it's good times. You have a favorite quote?
I do actually. My favorite quote is, "Wasted time is wasted life, and sleeping is a waste of time."
Santa's heard that somewhere before. Name all 12 of your grandchildren, youngest to oldest. I'm just joking.
I can do that.
You can?
Absolutely.
Knock it out.
Parker, Hayden, Davis, Ella, Emmett, Kate, Jordan, Kate, Jordan. I'm trying to do it in order.
Yeah.
And then, I skipped one. He's before Emmett. It would be Noah. It's 10, and then Quinn, Cece, Sloan, and Sasha.
Sick.
Nice.
That was solid. I actually wrote that down. I told my wife Christine, I'm gonna give this one. Then I'm gonna let him off the hook. But you nailed it. Nice. Okay. And then normally we do a pop culture quiz on, because we're the show of record of 1980s television.
Oh.
However, I did up some different ones for you. You ready?
Good.
Pick one of the three. Dragnet, Law and Order, or Murder, She Wrote.
Law and Order.
The only one I watched was Dragnet.
Nice. I know. I was hoping you'd say that. Best fictional defense lawyer. Perry Mason, Atticus Finch, or Ben Matlock.
Wow. I would go with Atticus Finch because the job he did was unbelievable.
Oh,
Perry Mason did it every week, so I'd go with Atticus.
Best courtroom movie. 12 Angry Men, To Kill a Mockingbird, or My Cousin Vinny.
My Cousin Vinny.
I was hoping you'd choose that. Whose case would you take? And this is the pro athlete murder division. O.J. Simpson, Reuben Carter, who was the middleweight, I think, 1966, or Aaron Hernandez. Ooh. If you had to defend one of the three.
Reuben Carter.
Yeah, Hurricane was. All right. Whose case would you take? Historical division. Joan of Arc, 1431. Here's heresy. John Brown, 1859, treason, first-degree murder, insurrection. Or Jesus, AD 30, treason, blasphemy.
Wow. Only because I know the results of all three. I think the easiest one to get either a reversal or an acquittal would have been Joan of Arc. So I would take her.
Okay, fair enough. I thought I just was throwing out the Jesuit selection. Okay.
No. He had no chance. Plus, he wanted that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that
makes a big difference.
How about whose case would you take in the sports division? All right, the Black Sox, who in 1921, I think was when the court case came, but I think it was 1919 or 18. 1919. They were charged with fixing. Although they got off, some of the players got banned. All right, that's one. Ali versus the United States military, which it was a refusal to step forward. I think that was 67. Or Kurt Flood versus Major League Baseball, which was a reserved clause of 1970.
What about the cheating Astros?
I'd rather have a fourth one. I'd rather take Pete Rose's case against
tell me about it.
Against Major League Baseball.
I'd like to hear about that, actually.
All right. But with the three you gave me, I would take the what was the first one?
The Black Sox.
I'd take Shoeless Joe Jackson. He got punished, and he didn't try to throw the games.
That's right.
And he's one of the greatest players ever.
One of the great World Series ever.
Yep. My feeling about Pete Rose is that, and this comes from being a gambler myself. I think the ban against him, I think his punishment doesn't fit the crime. I think he's been punished enough. And had he bet $1 on one of his games, then I would have said the ban for life is sufficient. But because his betting was on baseball, based on his knowledge, which by the way, the hypocrisy of some of the rules that come down, the rulings that come down for Major League Baseball and other sports, you can bet on any baseball game you want to bet on. You go to Las Vegas, you can bet on any game you want to bet on. It's legal in the state of Nevada. But because he was a manager, baseball looked upon this as bad for the game, going back to but he wasn't talking to anybody to get inside information. He was using his skills as a manager to bet. So I think that he should have been punished.
Yeah.
They should have kept him out for a number of time, but he was one of the best players ever to play the game. He deserves his place in the Hall of Fame.
If we had a Hall of Fame, we'd induct you in.
Thank you.
And I do want to thank you for always being a great model for me. I always respected you, and in particular, when I was young, taking me around to those games really opened my eyes to what I could maybe do for a living, and so I appreciate that. The good
news for me is I got myself into a family that there's never a dull moment. There's always they come to me a lot with issues and problems, and I actually welcome that, and I would never turn anyone away, and it's the most incredible family. I come from a family of two, And when my first involvement into this family, I'll never forget when I went to her house.
13 children.
I'm sitting in the front room waiting for her to go out on a date. Her father was ironing in his shorts, his underwear. He's ironing on an ironing board. And in my household, I mean, my mother did everything. She ironed my handkerchiefs. She ironed socks.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And I'm watching this, and then I'm seeing her mother in the kitchen on the phone with Marky grabbing her skirts, crying, "Ma," and she's talking to somebody on the phone. And Virginia's yelling, "Where's my slip? Barbara, where did you put my slip?" And Barbara's yelling back, "I don't have your slip." And I'm going, this is the most chaotic place I've ever been into. But once I became part of the family, it was amazing how much love and compassion this family. Look, who was it that said that he, without fault, throw the first stone?
It's the guy you didn't get off the.
Yeah, I didn't get him off the.
That guy you didn't get him off the raft.
But I can tell you that this family, the love and the compassion this family has for themselves and others is by far one of the greatest things I've ever experienced and lucky to be a part of.
Yep. Well, we're lucky to have you. I'd vote you in the Family Hall of Fame.
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayno.
All right, you're welcome.
Thanks, Wayne.
All righty.
Now it's time for an installment of As Time Goes By, where we get to know Carlos Haro Jr. of Casablanca Restaurant in Venice 1 minute at a time. Now, let's play it again with Carlos Jr. And one more trivia question about the mascot of the show. So, can you tell me what the full name of Buck is, the official dog of Sports Stories?
No, Mr. Buck?
I'll give you a hint. It had to do with the Los Angeles Lakers during the Showtime era, and the name that Pat Riley assigned to Magic. So you put it all together, you could get it.
Oh, man.
He lives with us, so his last name's Lennon.
So, I know.
He goes by Buck Magic Lennon.
Oh, Buck
Magic Lennon. And the reason is because Pat Riley wanted Magic Johnson to get a little bit tougher, so he started calling him Buck instead of Magic all the time. And so that's why we call Buck as much, because he also has a similar disposition of being very nice.
Oh, okay.
So
you should tough him up.
Yeah, just a security dog reasons.
That's good.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Christine Jimbo and Marley Rice. Sports Stories is edited by Bob McCall. Additional staff include Ray Castro, Teresa Dolan, Jake Downey, Carlos Haro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
Lonely days are gone. I'm coming home. Sports Stories is on at 5. Well, I don't care how much money I gotta spend. Got to watch Sports Stories again. Lonely days are gone. I'm coming home. Sports Stories is live at 5 on YouTube. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Catch it at 5 on YouTube.
Check it out, Buck.